Hi class, Jolene here. Let's take a look at the previous student work for the representational symbol. So we'll start with this one. Let me move this over here, this over here. Okay, so you'll see students do this in a different order, but yours should include um, lots of type trials. Here's an example of where this student started with lots of detail and then eliminating detail for this one. Experimenting with the shape. So this is the image that they used and then started creating the shapes for it. And then ultimately she switched and did this building. I think I have other examples of this somewhere along the line. So you might say, well, there's a lot of detail in that with all these windows. Well, actually, as she told me, there are many, 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 many more windows in this particular chapel. I think it's in the Middle East somewhere, and that's what it's known for. So, and notice here in the type, she made a cross and made it red so it stands out to represent the religiosity of the building. All right, here's a final for this student. So let's take a look at her process. She did the San Diego Convention Center. So she looked at, brought in different images. When you bring in your images into your Illustrator file, make sure that you embed them so that they will show up when I open them. Okay, so here you can see she started off with lots of detail, started eliminating pieces, tried it with thicker and thinner lines, tried it as a silhouette, tried lots of different ways of presenting this representational symbol. Again, lots of type trials. That's what we should see. So let me go back to the first one on this, and so you can see how simple this is. And note the use of implied line here. So these are just lines, rectangles, circles. Here's another one using a building from Cuyamaca. So starting here with lots of detail, so the switcher should look like, start with the detail and then start eliminating anything that you can and still make it recognizable as the building that it is. Here's another one. Again, this student tried it in lots of different ways, adding type to it to see how it works with the type. And then that's the final. So another one. So you should have two pieces of type in your project, the name of the institution and in the building that it is being represented. If it doesn't have a building name, make one up. Because excuse me, I want to see two different pieces of type and how you handle that. And make sure you understand the hierarchy of the type. In this case, Cuyamaca College is at the top of the hierarchy, and the name of the building in a smaller font is second in the hierarchy. So this is the building that this student used. And again, lots of detail, eliminating pieces, and also trying different line styles. That will be under your brushes palette. All right, here's another one, a different building at, I think this is at Cuyamaca, starting with lots of detail, removing some detail, trying it in with gray, adding some foliage. If you do that, make sure that the foliage is truly a part of the essence of the building. So as you can see here, he simplified it even more and removed the foliage. And this is his final. Notice that this only has one piece of type and college is spelled wrong. It should have two. So it should tell us what building that represents. And type trials, and then trying it with another shape around it. Here's another one for the student center. So this is what I mean by two pieces of type: Cuyamaca College, Student Center. These are images that he started with. Again, start with a lot of detail, continue to eliminate, type trials, and then back. This is the final, and I would argue that more elements could be eliminated from this one. Remember, we want to get down to the bare essence of it. So this student was experimenting with several different buildings, including a feature at the Cuyamaca Conservation Garden, this big, huge watering can, which would be a wonderful thing to do too, because that very much represents the conservation garden. This is the museum at Cuyamaca, and here are some other buildings. And then ultimately, she chose the Heritage of the Americas Museum at Cuyamaca College campus. So this is a really good way of doing type, especially when you have a really long name. So I would count this as two pieces of type. This is the name of the museum, of the institutional building, and the kind of a tagline, if you will. It's on Cuyamaca College campus. This one is a building in Tulum, Mexico. We'll see a picture of it here. So this is the building that the student's representing. And here we see she starts with lots of detail on that one. Refining, refining, refining. Trying different brush styles. See what seems most appropriate for this particular one. And then the type trials. Back again, this is the final. This person chose the Japanese Friendship Garden, which is in the Inamura Pavilion. So that's two pieces of type. Couple of problems with this one. This, I would use a different font or use it the same font in a different way. So otherwise, this looks like it's all one name. And there's no hierarchy, there's no way for us to differentiate it. And make sure you center this piece of type under this piece of type, or right align it, or left align it, but don't have it be none of those things. So let's look at what this student did. Lots of detail, refining, refining, refining. Trying it with the type trials. More buildings from Cuyamaca. So this is a really good example of refining. Already there are very few lines here, but then the staircase was removed, and then it got down to just this, and then actually this extra line was added to give it dimension, which I think was a good call. This is a good way to do type trials line up all of one thing, in this case, Cuyamaca College on one side, and then the name of the building on the other side. And then you can kind of start mixing and matching them. And then there's the final for this one. Remember, as you'll see in the directions, the logo needs to be readable or legible in a 1-inch square. That's why you see this down here on the final. So when you present yours, you'll present one big one and then one that would fit in a 1-inch square. So we can see that it's still quite readable. Because if you think about it, that's the logo that's going to go on a business card, and it's not going to be much bigger than 1 inch, one or maybe 2 inches. So it's got to work even when it's really small. This student started off just sketching different buildings. This student happens to be good at that. And then ultimately, this is the final. So again, a really good example of this looks like it's the same font as this, but this is in all uppercase and this is in lowercase, and it is therefore subordinate to this in the hierarchy of the two pieces of type. Notice the implied line here. And I'm going to want to make sure we saw all of this. Okay. Type trials, really good way of doing type trials. And then he tried it in different colors, just trying it in different ways. All right, so this is the STEM Center at Cuyamaca College. Also a good way of doing the hierarchy, all uppercase, upper and lowercase. I'll remind you, when you bring your photos into your Illustrator file, make sure you embed them. It'll make your file size a little bit bigger than it would be if you linked them. And a smaller file size is always a good idea, but the problem with linking is that when your Illustrator file gets to me, all those links will be broken because those links are linked with what's on your computer. So that's why embedding them makes it so that I or anyone else can see them, even if we don't have those files resident on our computer. All right, so you can see the process there, and that's the final. This student chose Union College, and this building is the Knott Memorial Building. Notice here that she put the I inside one of the cutouts of the building here. So here's how she started tracing that building. And again, lots of details, moving her way through, figuring out how she's going to incorporate the type and her type trials. This student chose San Onofre, the nuclear generating station up in Oceanside. He did add color to this, and I've asked for it to be in black and white. But if I can clearly see that it works very well in black and white, you should feel free to do this. So let's look at his process. So those are the two domes at that nuclear power plant. And so you can see here, detail, less. This is actually the acronym for that building. Stands for San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station. So that was one of the ways he tried it. And then here you can see he used this flourish in several different ways. See what he was going to do with that. All right, let's see. I've got a few more here that are in folders. This student did the yogurt mill in El Cajon, a very well-known building. So again, you can see starts off lots of detail. And that he chose to do his as a silhouette with white lines and then broke up the type in this way. Again, this needs one more piece of type because Yogurt Mill is the name of it. Something would have to be made up, something like El Cajon's finest yogurt or something like that. So if it make sure you somehow have two pieces of type and that you show me the hierarchy. Okay, so that's the yogurt mill. This student chose where's his Illustrator file? There it is. A building in Mexico, I believe. So starts out here, starts eliminating, tries it as a silhouette, removes the windows. And, oh, this isn't Mexico, it's in Hawaii. And then this is the way this is his final. So look at this beautiful type and how he treated the dot on the top of the eye with the red to go with the word palace. Again, need one more piece of type, although arguably this one still works because most people probably call this the Iolani. And so we could say that palace is the second piece of type, and it is definitely done in a different but complementary way. So I can see that this student understands the hierarchy. Let's see if there's anything else to look at here. Yeah, this is how he did his tracing, and then this is all of his different work on different ways of doing this building. Okay, here's another one. This is the building at Cuyamaca that this student chose. And here's her refinement process. And then that is the final. Here's another one for the Student Help Center. Good example of using the hierarchy in an appropriate way. Hierarchy for the type. And this student used this picture of the, what the heck is this thing called? Botanical Gardens. How could I forget that? At Balboa Park. And so here's her process. Detail, detail, less, less, less. And then putting it with the type. Very clear hierarchical strategy here, Balboa Park, and in this case she made botanical gardens, the name of the building really stand out, but then allowed us to know that it's in Balboa Park. So that works really well. And then this is her final. Here's some more of her roughs. Okay, so I hope that gives you a good idea of what the expectations are, and I hope you enjoy this project. It's another one of those projects where you are very likely to be called upon at some time in your career to create something like this.